All right. We barely made it, a little bit late. That's okay. Reason being is we were hosting a dinner tonight here in Dallas. Had to cut out of there a little bit early to make it here for you guys. So hopefully, uh, you know, I think you guys would appreciate it. So that's why I did it. I don't like missing uh, on Monday or Wednesday if we move things around. I know that kind of throws people's schedule off if they plan on these. So again, appreciate you all, accommodating me being a little tardy, but also, taking time out of your schedule, come hang out here and ask good questions and actually participate. And yeah, means a lot that y'all take the time out to actually listen to this stuff. So, man, on the monetary policy today, we did not get the rate cut. They held here. So, I did mention that I had it on good authority that we would see rates drop. We're still within the time frame that they said that would happen for another week or two here. So, if we do see some catalyst transpire, maybe it's going to be an impromptu meeting by the Fed where we see them reduce rates. And I think they're going to have to. If we see the reverse carry trade unwind, we are at similar levels to what we were just days before things transpired back in August of 2024. This is the highest or the lowest, however you want to look at it, the yen versus the USD has been since that date. We are at 160.75 is what we touched today. And that's teetering on the edge. I think Japan was hoping that we would lower interest rates. Had Warsh come out and lowered interest rates, that would cause the dollar to depreciate against the yen. The yen would strengthen, and then they wouldn't have to move. But because he held interest rates, we've seen the value of the dollar continue to climb against the yen. The yen continues to depreciate against the dollar, and they are backed up against a wall here. So I do anticipate that we're going to see something out of the Bank of Japan in the near future. If we see the deal crumble between the US and Iran, and they do not sign a deal on Friday, I would expect that oil would then again spike. And that will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So maybe we're looking at, another unwind. The deal got signed today. It's not the deal. So again, people aren't paying attention, and I don't mean to point this person out over here. This is an MOU. I explained this Monday. It is a memorandum of understanding. It is not the deal. They put out the terms of the MOU so that people would understand what's going on, but it is not the deal itself. This is just like, us signing, agreeing that we're going to talk about the deal on Friday and hopefully actually get a deal signed. So thank you, my wonderful wife with the tea.
English breakfast.
Oh, English breakfast this evening in the Snoopy Cup. Very nice. So that's actually what's going on. I know that there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and it's difficult to decipher, all the different people out there discussing things, but that was an MOU that was signed, is not the deal itself, and we are waiting on the deal itself to be signed Friday. If that does not go through and we see things crumble, which that's kind of the way I'm leaning things go, I don't think the deal is going to get signed. That will cause another spike in oil, with them raising interest rates in Japan, us keeping interest rates the same. We're in for it. Things are going to move here, and it'll be just in time for things to move prior to the 28th of this month, when SWIFT is supposed to go live with their instant settlement, and also for the DTCC to move to T+0 on the 28th as well. So I, still confident that we're going to see something here in the next 10 days. Again, with the events that have transpired, we still need, one more move here in oil to push things over the edge. But again, we're right back to the levels we were just a few days prior to reverse carry trade beginning to unwind back in 2024. And now all the pieces are on the table. We've got the OCC still waiting on them to issue stablecoin guidance. Haven't seen them come out with that. We also haven't got any word from the BIS on their designations that they were supposed to provide for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and XRP here in Q2. We're running out of daylight on that one as well. Just another 13, 14 days left here for them to be able to issue that guidance. So I'm feeling pretty good. We also have MiCA, or Mika, however you want to say it, the regulations there in the EU forcing a delisting of Tether across all the exchanges over there across the pond as of July 1st. So there's going to need to be another liquidity source in place so that the crypto markets don't collapse when that transition happens. I do think that there could be implications for Tether as we see the reverse carry trade unwind. Their total balance sheet is not backed by treasuries. They don't meet the standards there for MiCA as far as the backing, and they don't meet the standards for the Genius Act as well. We should see ROUSD and potentially XRP take that position over there across the pond as far as, you know, the most used stablecoin in that jurisdiction. And things are culminating here. We've got just a few days left here in June, and I'm expecting some fireworks as things play out here. So again, could they kick the can? Could things shift? I'm just calling it like I see it as we sit today. So a lot can change in a very short period of time. But you guys know me. If I come out here and talk to you all about it, I'm pretty confident in things. It doesn't always work out the way that I hope it does or think that it's going to. I am not perfect, and that's probably a good time for my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. You should not base any of your financial decisions based on what's discussed this evening. It's for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always speak with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And all the opinions that I share here are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. So with that out of the way, and the brief little overview of the macro and what we've got going on, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. As always, if you do like the content here, if you get value from it, if you wouldn't mind, geez, please clicking the like button, subscribe, share, hype it if you're over there on YouTube. All of that does help the channel and the algorithm, and it is all very much appreciated. All right, we'll get into the super chats here. I've got a couple that I missed from earlier in the week, so I'm going to grab those, and then we'll get on to the ones from tonight. Let's see here. All right, so the first one says, just wanted to let you know that my super chat was missed. Wager rewards. Sorry about that. They said Japan raised, let's say the US lowers. They didn't, they held. Does the reverse carry trade unwind now? I think that they're going to force Japan to be the one to have to move. Didn't you say that this would cause volatility and expect a drastic drop in XRP's price because of this before the bull run starts? There's still potential for downside in XRP prior to us lifting off here. I'm not playing that. I mean, blockchain backer, you know, again, I talked about him the other night, but he's 75% in the market. He's got 25% out, just waiting on, you know, if there is one more drop here, if we do see a convincing move to the upside, he will put that capital into the market. So that's how he's playing it. He's already got exposure, significant exposure for his position, and just leaving a little bit of dry powder to be able to capitalize if there is volatility to the downside. And he's okay with missing out on, you know, a 10% move to the upside with 25% of his bag if he's able to enter the market there. So I don't know if you want to play it like that. Again, not here to give you financial advice, but he's a pretty sharp fellow. However, now that the U.S. has announced their decision to keep interest rates steady, can I please change my question to the following? Oh, reel all that back in real quick. He says, the U.S. have held rates steady. 9 of 18 of the FOMC stated that they expect one more rate hike over the next year, which takes any decrease in rates completely off the table now. That is not true. That's half of them that are thinking that hikes would be good. And that's because they're still viewing it through the lens of unemployment and inflation. where Warsh said today that he is not viewing it through that lens. So that was interesting. He says this means that it's literally impossible for the reverse carry trade to happen now. Also not true. This is something that is required for the domino theory and liquidity shock to play out, which would turn into giving us volatility to happen. The bull run finally begins, right? I don't know why people like the reverse carry trade is going to happen whether you want it to or not. There's way too much leverage built into the market based on borrowing from Japan over the past 25 years. It's going to come to an end. They are going to have a credit crisis and a capital call. Okay.
So you wouldn't read the wrong one. That's why.
Oh, okay. Well,
you got the second one on there. They're both on the same page.
Okay. All right. I'll do that one too. So look, I know people are tired. I can guarantee you I am more tired than you are. I can promise you that nobody is more tired than I am of waiting on this to play out. I've been talking about it till I'm blue in the face for more than 2 years. Seeing the writing on the wall and knowing that this is going to play out, and we're still lingering on the edge here. So I get it. I get people are frustrated. They want me to pivot or change the narrative or come up with another solution. This is the only way the perfect storm plays out, and I'm again extremely confident that that is how it goes. So I'm not changing my tune because I'm not perfect. I'm not the end all be all. You should listen to a bunch of people. And there are other people that have just foregone this conclusion. But I think that's a little short-sighted based on the events that are transpiring and the position that the world is in. If you really understood the leverage that is currently in the markets based on the yen that's been borrowed, it's staggering, like more than you can imagine. And when this does unwind at scale, it is absolutely going to be the catalyst that we need for the rest of this to play out. So, like I said, I get it. I get the duration, and a lot of people can't stick with something long enough to see it through. And I'm not saying that to be demeaning or mean in any way. It's just literal truth about the majority of the population. They have a hard time being patient and sticking with things for an extended period of time. And that's why there's a very small portion of the population that has outsized returns on things. Most people, their attention span's short. If things don't work out linearly in a very short period of time, they give up on things and move on to the next one. And the people that win are the people that have conviction over extended periods of time. So other super chat, because my wife was nice enough to print them out here. She says, I'm not sure if this was a male or female, but the question is, my question was, what do you think the odds are of the BIS designating XRP a tier 1 asset? This is Todd, excuse me. It is a gentleman. I predicate that thesis based on XRP being the bedrock or the cornerstone of all financial markets. And for that to happen, it has to be a significantly higher price. The volume that would then move over the network would basically be like the global economy settling through one unified asset and ledger. And that would be enough to be able to validate that as riskless, because the world's not going to stop turning. There's always going to be people that are transacting. If they're doing it on digital rails, banks, institutions, the BIS, Project Agora, back into the stock market, DTCC, the FX, commodities, futures, perps, options, you name it, I believe will all settle back to the XRPL. And we've already had Larry Fink talk about this. He said it needs to settle back to one unified ledger across the board. When asked about XRP in an ETF, he can't talk about it. When Brad's asked the same question, he can't talk about it. So I don't know. I think there's a there personally. And, you know, I'm just going to say I'm certain of it, to be honest with you. Does that happen in short order here? I think so. Could it take longer for that to receive that designation? Would it need to sit in that position for a while before they gave it that designation? If this wasn't premeditated or orchestrated in some capacity, probably. If you believe that it's the latter, then maybe it happens much sooner than people realize. And all it takes is one announcement. If the BIS comes out and says XRP is a tier 1 asset, it's game over. Like the response that you would see from that would be wild. And a lot of people have talked about an administrative repricing. Maybe that's the mechanism by which that happens, and it's separate from the other macro events that I've discussed. I really don't care which one it is. It still leads to the same outcome in my mind. I don't have enough ego or pride to like have to say I was right at the end of it. I'm confident in my thesis, but at the same time, if there are other people and we still get to the same outcome, I'm on board, man. So anyway, I would give it. I'm certain that at some point it will have that designation. All right, those are the two that I missed from Monday. So let's go ahead and jump into the ones from tonight. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me and ask great questions. Outdoor thing, this 24 says appreciation message. We all appreciate your work you do for us in the community. Cheers, legend. AU, almost time. Appreciate that. Feel very privileged, very blessed, and grateful to be in a position to be able to help other people and create value and provide value in a meaningful way. I get a lot of fulfillment from it, like I've talked about. So, yeah, none of that's possible without you guys, and wouldn't trade it for the world. So, thank you all. William, Mr. Kilgore, good to see you, dude. He says, regards, Jake. So what is the deal with XLM getting so much so far and XRP getting so little? If something is run on the XRPL, does it have to settle with XRP? So the answer is no to your latter question. The ledger will route through the path of least resistance and lowest cost. So currently, if both counterparties wanted to accept RLUSD or another issued asset on the network, they would just send the payment between the counterparties and finalize that on the network. Once there is enough liquidity in XRP, it will become significantly cheaper and faster to utilize that as the go-between versus other issued assets on the network. And the DEX, again, is built in a way where it will route payments through the fastest, cheapest option. So will there still be settlement on the XRPL that's separate from using XRP? Probably. There will be liquidity pools and payment channels and AMMs and other things where XRP won't get. I mean, I'd love to see it get all the volume, but I think it would have to be extremely high price in order for it to be liquid enough to settle all of those things. And you probably need, again, I've talked about this before, but an implicit or explicit subnet that, ends up settling on the back end through XRP. So the answer is no, and that's why they've been trialing a lot of this without XRP in the short term here. But as they push more liquidity into it, we see more traction on the network and more volume starts to move through XRP. It's a positive feedback loop or flywheel, if you will, so that more and more transactions will settle through XRP and then push the price higher and give it a price floor. As far as XLM getting so much so far versus XRP, the market is still complete speculation. And other people would tell you the market's controlled and manipulated. I would probably agree with that to some extent. It only takes a couple $1 billion to really manipulate the market in any capacity at this point because of how nascent it is. I mean, there was a metric on Monday that I thought was very interesting. Elon Musk is now worth more than all of Bitcoin, right? One individual on the planet has a higher market cap than Bitcoin itself. So anyway, all that being said, I would agree that both are true. Still completely speculative. We don't have real utility driving the valuation of these networks and assets yet, nor do we have a market that's without manipulation. Large institutions are definitely here, and they are manipulating prices to their advantage. These are not securities. And so, until there's a regulatory body that sits over this and looks for market manipulation, and also reprimands people for doing those things, I don't know that there's any incentive for people not to do that. Hey, good to see you. They say legend. Next BOJ meeting is in July, unless if Iran's volatility or violates the agreement, U.S. attacks, oil rises, Bank of Japan raises interest rates 0.5, Fed lowers interest rates, OCC publishes guidance, BlackRock launches an ETF for XRP, Evernorth buys XRP, Senate approves the Clarity Act, and Trump signs it. Emergency mode. I agree with all of that, comma, I don't know about the Clarity Act. I've said this a lot, and again, people don't like it for whatever reason, but XRP doesn't need the Clarity Act. Some of the other networks do. A lot of the other networks do. Charles Hoskinson's not happy because he needs the Clarity Act and Ripple does not. And he, voiced that. So if that's not an indicator for you, I don't know what is. Could that happen? Could it be the catalyst that pushes Congress over the edge and they have to act quickly and get things done? Potentially. But I'm still not overly certain that even if we see these catalysts play out, that they're going to rush the Clarity Act through. Would love to be wrong. Again, also, I was literally on Capitol Hill the same week the Genius Act got passed, talking to congressmen and women, trying to advocate for them to pass both pieces of legislation. So I want the Clarity Act passed. I just see the opportunity in the market for XRP in particular if it's not instated. I think that gives it somewhat of a moat. So once it's already implemented and at scale and usable, and they need to roll out DeFi to the institutions, I think at that point they will pass the Clarity Act. Is that now? Is it later? Again, I think things could move very quickly for XRP and its implementation here in the next, call it less than 20 days, 13 days, something like that. So do they pass Clarity quickly after that on July 4th? Sure, plausible. Brandon, tinfoil hat time. We're in the endgame. Trump turning on Israel, agreeing with Iran to have ballistic missiles, Israel ties to 9/11, Epstein, Rothschilds, JFK, etc. I think the Middle East swarms Israel. That is an interesting thesis. I'm going to stay away from that publicly. Behind the Badge film says, I've heard Japan might be forced to raise interest rates more aggressively in a few weeks. Is that true? I don't see another option for them. They've never had an emergency meeting. So just to be transparent, it would be one of a kind situation if that were to take place. But when backed into a corner with no options and your currency literally inflating away in comparison to the dollar and inflation rampaging your economy, unique circumstances require unique actions. And I think that there's a high probability that what you mentioned will take place. Tim Jabu, he says, master of the mastermind. Do you think there are any companies that might be worth investing in, and what EXP might change their profits enough to make them worth investing in in their stock, not financial advice. Thank you for being part of the mastermind group. Glad to have you in there. We talk about, a lot of different investment opportunities there in the group, provide financial education, business resources, all of that stuff. So if that sounds cool to you, if you want to learn more about these things, if you like what you've heard here and want more of it and a lot more of it, you can join the group. Just go to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. So as far as stocks go, when I was in school, we learned a couple different indicators. So we would look at PE ratio, and we would look at the Buffett indicator, and you could look at Sharpe ratios. You could look at multiples on companies based on earnings. If you follow Ben Graham and value investing and want to invest like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, you're looking for fairly valued companies or companies that are slightly undervalued that you believe will have outsized returns over the long term. Do we have any of those in the stock market today? Sure. There are plenty of smaller cap things that still have not seen, the upside that I think that they're going to with some of the revolutions that we're going through with AI and blockchain and other progressive technologies. Are the IPOs worth investing in? I mean, if Elon gets his way, SpaceX is going to be the most profitable company on the planet. I could see it happening, to be honest with you, because there's data, there's the satellites, there's compute, there's data centers in space. The other piece that I think a lot of people are missing on, actually, I think probably going to be one of the largest money makers for them, aside from the satellites, is intraplanetary transportation. So not going to another planet, but actually moving cargo on Earth. So you can fill a spaceship with a lot of cargo, like a lot of cargo, and it can get to its destination significantly faster than going on a barge across the ocean. So at scale, now that they can land the rockets and they could build streamlined systems to be able to offload all of that, whatever's being shipped, those shipping containers or however they're going to structure that. I think that that's going to be a huge revenue generator for SpaceX as things kind of continue to expand here. Does he get the moon base and like all of that? They also just bought Cursor. So I don't know if you guys saw that acquisition or not. That happened yesterday. It was a $60 billion acquisition, or maybe it was Monday. I don't remember which one, but with the additional price appreciation that they've seen on the stock, they were able to finalize that acquisition in-kind stock transfer. That is a wild company when it comes to building AI infrastructure and learning material. So for them to do that, AI is going to be a big piece of SpaceX over the long term with Grok and what they're building there. So, and they're going to need that to be able to be the overlord for the robotic armies that are going to go colonize these other planets that don't have atmospheres, to be able to terraform them before people show up. Which again sounds like sci-fi, but I don't doubt Elon at this point. But anyway, back to the other IPOs. So you've got OpenAI that's going to go public. You've got Anthropic. Probably got Kraken here in the near future. Those are some that I see coming quickly. You would likely want to IPO at the top of the market. So, I would just run the ratios that I mentioned. I would look at PE ratio and I would look at the Buffett indicator. I'd calculate those on whatever companies you're looking at. If the shares are trading at more than 15 to 18 on PE ratio, probably not investing in that type of company. Stock market as a whole is currently trading at a 25 or 26 on a PE ratio. Historically, if you invest in these levels or at these levels, you make a negative 2% return for the next 10 years on average. And again, like that's not me making that up. That is literally, if you go do the research, what it is. So people trying to buy stocks here with how overextended the market is. Could it go higher? Sure. The market can be irrational longer than you can stay solvent. But the money is made when people are scared, when the market pulls back, when there's significant downside, and you can enter the market at steep discounts in comparison to the long-term appreciation or the actual value of the companies you're investing in. So nothing out there that I'm looking at in particular. I'm waiting for the reverse carry trade to happen, and then I think we will see substantial downside in markets. I do think there'll be a V bottom out of there, and I think that there's opportunity when that takes place. I've said before, I think 30 to 50% down in the stock market in a very short period of time, and then a V bottom out of there, and then maybe we are headed to 10,000 on the S&P, like David Hunter says. But I think we're in for a significant pullback in the short term prior to that run happening. And I definitely believe in that run over a longer duration of time, especially with the advent of AI and blockchain and other progressive technologies moving into a lot of these corporations. They're integrating them right now, and their costs are going to come down substantially. Their efficiencies are going to go up a lot. The margins that they're going to be operating on are going to be much higher. And therefore they're going to be generating, more profits. So, and they're going to be producing more value in society. So all of those things culminate to up and to the right for the stock market. But I personally am currently staying out of the stock market, and it's not something that I'm looking at as far as public equities go. And again, I'm not the end all be all. You should go talk to your advisor. They're probably going to have very different opinions than myself. I would say even the advisors at Digital Ascension Group have very different opinions than how I manage my own portfolio. Losing hope, Jake. Now I'd be happy with $5. Sad face. Well, I think you're going to be more than happy. Is all I'm going to say. Behind the badge, he also says, we also heard that XLM, XRP, etc. don't need price appreciation to facilitate tokenized stocks. Is that true? Yeah, they can tokenize stocks right now on any one of these networks. So correct. Well, you said price appreciation. Sorry, I was thinking you said the Clarity Act. Tokenization and settlement are a little bit different. So you specifically stated tokenization, and the answer to that would be yes. You could tokenize stocks or other, RWAs, real world assets on any of these chains. Settling those and providing liquidity to a marketplace that actually functions would be a very separate conversation. So tokenization, yes. Actual adoption and usage, no. Not without price appreciation. Ripple my shorts. It's an interesting name. He says, Jake, my man, not the myth, the legend. Appreciate you, brother. So put this into dumb people terms. If the government issues treasury bonds for XRP, how does that actually work? It depends on if they're issuing the bonds with XRP as the backing and if it's redeemable in XRP. So you could issue gold-backed bonds, but those might be redeemable in dollars, or they could be redeemable in gold. Most of the time when you issue a bond or debt instrument like that, and it's backed by something, it would be redeemable in kind. So if they are going to issue XRP-backed bonds in Japan, those bonds would be redeemable in XRP. So you lend them money, they issue you a bond, later on they pay you back, you get XRP on the other side of that deal when you redeem that bond. When I was young, my father had a good friend, and for my second or third birthday, he gave me some treasury bonds. They were $100 bonds. He paid $100 back then for them, and they matured when I turned 18. And over that duration, I made $18. The 18% bond, it was really good. over 18 years. Not so great, to be honest with you. Like, he could have invested in almost anything else. He could have bought stock, he could have bought gold, he could have bought silver, he could have bought basically anything other than the bond, and it would have produced a significantly higher return. This bond yields didn't do very well over the duration that I held that. And I didn't know anything about it until I turned 18, and they were like, "Hey, here's this bond." And I'm like, "Cool, cash it in." 20-year bond. So anyway, it's a debt instrument that governments can issue to be able to raise capital that's redeemable in the underlying collateral that it's issued on top of. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. I think that we're going to have gold-backed bonds or gold-backed treasuries. Those will be 50-year gold-backed treasuries on the 250th anniversary here in just a few weeks. Based on what Judy Sheldon said, I'm kind of with her. I think we're going back to a gold standard in a cryptocurrency type of way. And I'm looking forward to that. But hopefully that provides you, kind of a simple way to think about that and understand what they're talking about. Textured Puma says, thoughts on all the stablecoin sandwich talk, including the Ripple executives. Can XRP reach high prices without the bridge use case? I haven't looked into this. I'm going to give it a Google here. Stable coin sandwich. Stablecoin sandwich is a cross-border payment method that bypasses traditional banking intermediaries by converting a sender's local fiat currency into stablecoins like USDC, transferring them across the blockchain, converting that back to the recipient's local currency. Neither the sender nor the recipient need to interact directly with crypto. So again, I stated this earlier, if there is a faster, cheaper way to settle payments, it will route through XRP if it's on the XRPL. If it's given a tier 1 status, treasuries also have a tier 1 status. Currently, US treasuries do. I think that there could be other currencies that are also given, or their treasuries given a tier 1 status by the BIS as things progress here, because they'll be able to use those as collateral, and they need more collateral. They need a lot more collateral for the derivatives market. So what they just discussed there is how Ripple has utilized Tether and ODL, and now ROUSD and ODL. A lot of people predicate the entire use case of XRP based on settlement of international payments. They think, SWIFT adoption is the end all be all. I would disagree with that substantially. I think that that's just one use case of very many for XRP. I think it's back-end infrastructure for market settlement and also collateral for derivatives. That's where I think this is headed, and I think that's the major value proposition for XRP versus cross-border payments. However, I do think that there will be a use case in cross-border payments for it, and if there's enough value in XRP, it will be cheaper and faster than sending a stablecoin. So I don't know if you've ever sent USDC. It is cheaper than traditional rails, but it is not free, and it's not pennies. If you're sending large amounts of USDC, there's a decent cost to it because it's going to burn that on Ethereum. If you're using Polygon or another network, then yeah, maybe it's an even lower cost, but they're going to choose the lowest cost, fastest option. And that's going to be the bridge. So you're utilizing a stablecoin as the bridge in this instance here that you mentioned, the stablecoin sandwich. But if they have the optionality to do something cheaper and faster that's interoperability and it has a built-in DEX to be able to swap between the two different things that either counterparty wants to send and receive, they're going to choose that over the stablecoin. Unless, yeah, I mean, that's going to be the case. That's the case that I would make. Sonic UK says, Jake, I'm back in the top 0.02% holders of XRP. Haven't onboarded with you as I'm in England. what's stopping you, my man? We work with a lot of international people. If you want institutional custody at Anchorage, the same place BlackRock holds their assets, segregated, bankruptcy, remote, insured to $100 million, and you want an advisor that can help you manage that and make sure that you're doing the most that you can with it in order to be able to meet your objectives, then we would love to work with you. He says, shall I keep going with my cold wallet or have Archax be a custodian? My friend Lucas says that you're looking shushy. I don't know what shushy means. So I don't know. I'm hoping that means something nice. I appreciate the compliment if it is one. So we've talked to Archax, love Graham. We love Simon. Actually, I went, well, I won't talk about that story. I got to spend some time with them at Swell 2 years ago in Miami and really enjoyed that. We've had multiple conversations since then. They have some really cool stuff on their platform. The only apprehension that we've had in working with them versus some other platforms is crime insurance. So you could pay for your own crime insurance to be able to cover their platform. I'm sure that other insurance companies would underwrite the risk there. It's just very expensive to pay for that yourself. It's also very expensive for them to pay for it, candidly, and that's why they don't currently have that, at least the last time I spoke with them. That's been our only sticking point in working with Archax, because love the people that are there. I love the products that they have. I think that what they've built is fantastic. It's very secure. It works well. They've integrated both Fireblocks and Ripple custody. So you kind of get the best of both worlds when you're working with them. It's just the insurance piece that's been a sticking point. So, and we may be able to overcome that in another way in the not too distant future if I get my way on things. But in the short term, if they were to get that, we would love to work with them in a much larger capacity, especially for those in the UK like yourself. So that's my only, I wouldn't even call it a criticism. I would just say call out for what they currently provide. And they do have some insurance. It's just not, $100 million worth on the accounts there. But yeah, we would love to work with you. We can work with you right now. We can work with you as an individual, or if you have a corporation or a trust set up as well. A Zing Giant, not Amazing Giant, Azing Giant, 5115 says, legend. When you have spoken to R3, have they mentioned how much XRP they still have from the Ripple settlement? Thank you for all that you do. They have. I don't know that I can share that here publicly. What can I say? Yes, it would be the simplest way I could answer that without giving away more than I should. Jonathan, he says, evening, Jake. Space John from East Denver. Hey, dude. Good to see you, man. He says, people seem to miss that the Iran conflict happened perfectly between the Olympics and the World Cup. Every moving post, end of WC final on July 19th, the World Cup final. I'm glad you picked up on that. If that's not a tell that it's pretty well orchestrated, I don't know. Real conflicts don't care about sports. Behind the badge again says, I've heard you say that the SpaceX IPO is interesting timing. What does that mean? I'm confused. So you want to go public at the top of the market. That is when your stock is going to perform the best, or very close to the ending phase of the market. You don't want to go public in a market with low liquidity, and that's why we didn't see a lot of people go public in 2024 or 25. The market wasn't as frothy as it's been in previous years. We saw a lot of IPOs in 22 and 21. And so you want to go into a public offering when there's a lot of investors that are enthusiastic and willing to put additional capital into the market. You don't want to go in when that's not the case. So, again, we've got a couple more IPOs that I mentioned earlier, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Kraken, that I do think are on the horizon in the not too distant future. Is SpaceX kind of like the precursor to let people know that we are culminating at the top? Potentially. Elon he did that with the crypto market in 21. He came on Saturday Night Live promoting Doge, and then Doge went off a cliff. Coinbase also IPO'd at the top of the market in 21. It's April 14th, I believe. It was the Pico top of the crypto market. So large IPOs and listings like that tend to coincide with a lot of hype. And, looking at the fear and greed index in the stock market, it was at 38 the other day, which is still low because that's not the sentiment that I feel out in the market. Currently, fear and greed shows 33 on that one. CNN, it also says 33. We're in fear for the stock market. Blow off tops happen in extreme greed. That's where blow off tops happen. That's where, Pico top for cycles end. So if we're still in fear, I think we're in for some volatility. And then on the other side of the reverse carry trade unwinding, I think we get into greed and extreme greed. I think that there'll be a very quick V bottom out of there, and we may see additional IPOs come out through the rest of the year here as things progress. That's my thesis. Again, other people smarter than me disagree, so take it with a grain of salt. Go talk with your financial advisor before making those investment decisions. I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. Filthy Rich says, Jake, why are you confident June 28 will require a much higher XRP price for settlement liquidity? Are we talking $100 plus? I don't see how it could be less than that and facilitate what they're looking to utilize it for. So could it take a little bit longer than that? Maybe it's July 13th, potentially. But for them to both pick that day is kind of weird to me. If it was kind of staggered or something different, I might feel a little bit different about it. But for them to both say June 28th, pretty compelling. But yeah, I would think it would need to be $50 to $100 at a minimum, potentially higher, in order for them to actually utilize it in that capacity. Not Rick Ross, but Nick Ross. He says, legend. Have you seen Crypto Phoenix on YouTube? He breaks down price 9-to-1 collateral to liability and restabilization economy, 150K per XRP, 2-tier economy. I haven't watched it, to be honest with you. Many people have reached out about it. Sounds compelling. I think that there's going to be phases to this. Do we get to those prices over the long term? Sure. Yeah. I think, 2030, 2032, somewhere in there, 6-digit XRP makes a lot of sense. You're going to have a lot more things on chain. Again, like, I think the concept there is the administrative repricing. I don't believe that. I think that it still needs to be dynamic and flexible, and I think that they're going to utilize supply and demand to be able to push the price where they need it to be, and then it's a positive feedback loop from there. I don't think that they can just administratively. My concern is the peg. If they peg it to a certain price, you need that flexibility in the token. And I should probably go listen to it based on the number of people that have reached out about it. And I'm probably off base and not understanding it as well as I could be until I actually go listen to it. So I will go do that, and I will circle back. Visceral response is what you just got, but I need to do some deeper research to give you a quality answer on the discussion. Dragon Lord, Legend. Carbon One, awesome dude. Glad to see you. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind. They say War said, getting monetary policy right. We're as near to it as we can do. That is our North Star. Interesting North Star comment. Thoughts? I mean, XRP is Ripple's North Star. If words mean things, we'll see. Jonathan Lindsay, he says, hey Jake, I'm 20 years old, been listening to you for 2 years, found content very helpful, not financial advice. What would you do if you were my age and price appreciation happens? What companies, fields would you invest in? Oh man, 20 years old. I would, and this is going to sound super cliche, I would use that money to invest in myself. I wouldn't be looking at companies or fields. I would invest in myself to be able to garner the skill sets to be able to utilize the resources and tools that I'd been given. If I gave my son this example the other day, and it sounds like you've been listening for 2 years, so you've probably already done a lot of this education and you're well on your way and you're doing a great job. But if I hand you a gun, a loaded gun, and you've never seen a gun before, you've never held a gun before, you've never used a gun before, maybe you've seen a few people that like kind of knew what they were doing with a gun, how dangerous would that gun be? Pretty dangerous, right? Because one wrong move, you might shoot yourself, you might shoot somebody else that you didn't intend to. A lot of things could go wrong with that. You definitely don't know how to put the safety on or release the clip and unload the gun, or take it apart and clean it. Like there's just a lot of things that take time. Like you have to go through the motions and actually do the thing in order to be able to gain the skill, to be able to wield a weapon, and have respect for it and also be able to use it effectively. I view money the same way. It can be used in a manner where it goes very poorly. People will go bankrupt. People have drug problems and addictions and other issues, or it consumes them in a way that they didn't intend, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them. If you're young and come into a lot of money, like I said, it sounds like you're doing a good job educating yourself, watching good content, probably, hopefully not just me, hopefully many other people that are intelligent and have worked with large sums of money before or can provide you some education around that. Hopefully you've garnered some professionals and those relationships so that you can, start working through those things now before price appreciation happens. Find mentors, find people that are successful and have accumulated wealth and do fulfilling work. That's probably one of the hardest things that I think you'd have to deal with at 20 years old if you came into hundreds of millions of dollars, is that normally takes people a lifetime, and they do a lot of work and get fulfillment from that work. And you're going to be in a position where you don't have to do that in order to achieve that objective. And so you're going to have to do some soul searching to figure out, like, what value do I want to provide to society? What impacts do I want to have? And I don't know that at 20 years old, you can fully conceptualize that. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I for sure could not. So maybe you are much more mature than I was at 20. It sounds like you are. But I mean, and I was talking about this with, some of our employees today. Your prefrontal cortex as a human being isn't fully formed until you're 25, 26 years old. Like you don't have a fully developed brain until you're that age. So, deciding what you're going to do with large amounts of money or the rest of your life in a position where, I wouldn't say you're at a disadvantage. You're obviously very intelligent, again, if you're even here at all. But I don't know that you have the full breadth of your capabilities yet. So, this is a long way of saying I would find other people that you hold in a high regard or have significant respect for that have done things that have provided value in society or you believe would be fulfilling for you, and then go learn from them. You would have the money and resources to do so. You could go work for them for free because you're set, right? And I would spend the money every time I have spent more money than I was comfortable with to put myself in rooms I didn't belong in. I've gained way more knowledge and expertise from the individuals in that room than I anticipated. And it's always in a different way than I even thought I was going to. So that would be the way that I would leverage it if I could go back and had that opportunity. So again, I don't know if that was what you were looking for or not. It sounds like you were asking a different question, like what should I invest this money in after I make it? I'm going to be cliche and say yourself and your self-development. Dozer's thoughts. 8846. They say, what do you think about crypto handle pay? Never heard of it. I have no idea. You guys know if I don't know about something, I will just say, don't know. Thank you for the super chat though. Marwanabad, probably butchered that. I apologize. They say the Israelis do not like this MOU, and anything that comes after it, they don't want to stop the war. They will be spoilers one way or another. They are very resourceful, as we all know. I tend to agree with you. I don't think this is going to get signed. I think this is a nice fake out in the market. Psychedelic river chicken. Wow. Wild. Well done on the name. They say, Jake, you big stud. Could Ripple file their own spot ETF directly? Appreciate your channel and your encouragement, the knowledge you share with us, and your desire to help the little guy win. Thanks. Thank you, man. Like I said, this community has given me a ton, and all I can do is try to help as many people as we can. Our mission at Beyond Broke is to help 1 million people become financially free. I don't know that we're going to do that anytime soon, but I think over my lifetime that we can help that many people, and through multiple generations. I think that that's probably the way that we're going to get there. So thank you for taking the time out and finding value in what we're doing. As far as Ripple issuing their own ETF, they could. I don't know what additional benefit that would provide them. They are an enterprise software and payment provider for both institutions, banks, and enterprises. I don't know how that would fit in their stack of products or solutions that they're offering to the market in a cohesive way. I'd have to really think about that to see if it's something that would make sense. But as far as I'm aware, in their business model, it's not anything that they're looking at or intend to do. So unless I could come up with a really compelling reason, I don't think that's going to happen. Q. Que paso? Hey. Hey, ma'am, how are you? Roughing it. She says, after price appreciation, if I immediately want to pay off my home, will that raise red flags? AKA, do I need to wait until I pay taxes on that money at the end of the year? Sorry, fixing this TikTok deal. At the end of the year before I can. Thanks. I don't think there would be an issue with that. I've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again. There are logical reasons to pay off your home and there's emotional reasons to pay off your home. Both can make sense. If you are at a high interest rate on your home and you did not have good credit and they financed it to you at something crazy, or you're in like a rent to own type situation, where you had bad credit and they financed it to you at like something over 10%, sure, cool, pay off your home. It makes sense financially to do that. If you have a mortgage locked in at less than 3%, it makes no logical sense, none, to pay off your home. If it gives you a better quality of life and reduces stress for you, which is an emotional decision, but still completely valid, by the way, then yeah, sure, pay it off. If it gives you more bandwidth to be able to operate at a higher capacity without the additional weight of thinking about your mortgage, which if you had all the money to pay it off anyway, I think it would do that. But I don't know. Like, some people just don't want to be in debt for whatever reason. That's been drilled into them their whole life. And so they just want to get out of debt as fast as they can because that's how they've been programmed. I get that. I mean, I grew up that way. My parents were very against debt. They thought it was evil and like, you were going to go bankrupt and all these things. Debt is a tool. There are good ways to use debt and bad ways to use debt. Just like money. Money is a tool. There are good ways to use money. There are bad ways to use money. Or guns or anything else out there. Back to the proposition here, and the exact question. No, I don't think it would raise any red flags. I think you would be plenty capable of doing that. And depending on the interest rate, you might want to do it sooner than later. Right. So I would recommend a lot of people kind of hunker down for a little bit, talk to multiple professionals, really understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. And again, both of those reasons are valid reasons. I'm not trying to say one isn't. For me, I would be much more on the logical side versus the emotional side, but I understand the weight that people feel from a mortgage. So if you wanted to sell some XRP to pay off your mortgage, I think you might be in a similar position to David Schwartz when he sold Ethereum to put a roof and solar panels on his house. Sold 40,000 Ethereum at $1. It's like the high was like $4,000 per Ethereum. So he could have sold 10 Ethereum instead of 40,000 if he had waited. I think XRP could operate in a similar capacity to that over the long term. So what's the cost to benefit there? Yeah, I would just think through those things before making that choice. And then you might also borrow or do something else with the XRP to be able to buy an apartment complex or another cash flowing asset that appreciates in value over time that pays for your mortgage itself with the cash flow off of that, so that you don't have to think about the additional weight of the mortgage. Just, again, different ways to think about it. Tyler, he says, can you provide BIS source and designating XRP? It is on the BIS's Twitter page. If you want to go back, you could probably put in BTC ETH Sol XRP, and you should be able to find it. You might even be able to, yeah. There's been multiple people that have shared it in the mastermind since people continue to ask for it. So if you want to go ask in there, people will share it readily with you as well. Professor Fabulous Bottle, it's an interesting name. Appreciate you on the super chat. They said, do you expect the government to ever reveal that this has been a plan all along? What will be the official narrative when this plays out? No, not at all. Maybe significantly later in the future. I mean, so like if you look at CIA documents and stuff that have been released here recently from back in the 80s or 70s, it's been 50 years ago that some of these operations happened, that they're now releasing the information around because it's so far past it that it doesn't matter. Maybe that's how this will go. And I don't know that it's been everybody's plan. Let me make that clear. I think that there are a few people that have played very good chess with this and anticipating how other people will move or react based on how you move. You can back people into a corner that way, and they end up having no other choice. So many people will squirm, they will move. You can anticipate how they will squirm and move, and you can put things in place to be able to shift their moves on the other side of that to put them in a position where they no longer have a choice for things. I think that that's kind of how this is played out. And I think it's taken a lot longer than some people had hoped or planned for, to be honest with you. But the inevitable outcome at this point, because it's the only option, will be to push XRP to a substantially higher price to be able to get out of the debt spiral and a collapsing fiat system that we're currently entering or have been in. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom down here and work my way back up to the super chats. We are a little over an hour in. Again, please like, subscribe, share. That does help the algorithm, and I appreciate everybody taking time out of your night on Wednesday to come hang out and ask good questions. Honey G, they say, hey, Uncle Jake. Uncle Jake. I don't know that I'll ever be an uncle, but I like it. Thanks for all that you do for us. XRP price target 2026. Sorry if I missed you going over this. I was telling, there was another gentleman that gave me, stuck some money in my jacket for a super chat earlier tonight. And he said, you pick the question. I don't know that I have a question, but I do have a comment. And I get why people are so fixated on price appreciation, but because it will be a catalyst that changes a lot of people's life. It's going to provide a lot of resources and open doors and opportunities that other people haven't had. And that's why a lot of people are here. Just transparently, a lot of people are here to make money so that they can then better their life for themselves, their family, and hopefully create other value for other people. I wish, and I told him this too, that people would ask deeper questions than the visceral, high-level wind moon in the 50 different ways that people ask it every time I get on here. I feel like that there's a lot more value that I can provide than just speculating on what price by what date. I have a fairly decent perspective on a lot of different things, including macroeconomics and financial education, business, hormones, and physique modification, and based augmentation based on high level performance and how to get the most output from your mind and body. I just feel like I have a lot to offer aside from like speculating on price. I understand, it's like I said, I get why people want that and continue to ask that because they want the reassurance, and sometimes you need that. Sometimes you're beat down, the market's rough, the sentiment's low, and people need the consistent hopium, as people call it. But if I could make a wish, it would be that people would be a little more introspective and ask questions that were a little bit deeper than just wind moon. So, and I'm not picking on you in particular, Honey G. This is a reoccurring thing that happens every Monday and Wednesday when I get on here. And I've talked about it before, but I will. You paid the super chat, so I will answer it. With certain catalysts playing out in a very short period of time, I think that it's highly likely we will see somewhere between $100 and $1,000 XRP, and potentially by the end of the year, a 4-digit XRP, based on, again, multiple catalysts culminating to the perfect storm for that outcome. All right. Not Mario. Mariozi. Not Hormozy. Mariozi. Says, hey, legend. What about BIS Project Agora and China's Enbridge? They bypass XRP? Question mark. Can they prevent price appreciation? I gave Smoke a shout out last time on Monday. I would just reiterate that here. If you want information on Project Enbridge and Agora both using XRP to facilitate transactions, I would go look at Smoke's page. SMQKE is his Twitter handle over there on X. Marty, how's it going? Gilman. Hey, man. He says, Jake the Great, thank you for looking out for all of us. Is it possible that large companies have deals with Ripple for huge amounts of XRP outside of the spot ETFs without our knowledge to spark supply shock? God bless the tea lady and your family. Thank you for the super chat, Marty. And good question. I think they have pre-negotiated contracts at lower costs for the escrow that Ripple has, not necessarily with exchanges for buying there. So the supply shock is going to have to happen on the exchanges based on the demand that is coming onto the exchanges and the supply that's left there. Any off-market transactions, such as pre-negotiated deals that Ripple has for the escrow, OTC desk, or dark pools are not going to affect the price. Silent Seaman, he says, yo, Jake Clavinator. Happy Monday. Yeah, I know. I was calling it Wednesday on Monday, dude. Appreciate the feedback there. What's your thoughts on price appreciation happening for our 250th birthday? What a gift that would be for our nation. Debt shrank and new global financial strengthened for the U.S. Old Trump pump, thanks to the for keeping us straight. Yeah, appreciate you, dude. Thank you for the kind words and the support. I mean, I've said it. I think that the 28th of this month has something to do with the use of XRP. I don't know how else they can move to real-time settlement for Swift or for the back end of the stock market. So that would be prior to the 250th anniversary, but could we see additional upside when they issue gold-backed treasuries and potentially, leveraging XRP along with gold and oil to be able to reset the monetary system? Absolutely. We already did this one. We got KT Baby. How are you, ma'am? She says, fam, Warsh said meeting in 6 weeks, but anything can happen and won't give forward info. TFH, BG123 ship hadn't landed yet, and 2 snowballs left hanging in there. We're gonna go down the rabbit hole a little bit on BG123 real quick. Okay. So I've been here a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean around the riddles and all of that a long time. Similar to yourselves, probably spent way too much time pontificating on what they actually mean. My wife says, oh no, not the rabbit hole. If many of you won't even know what this means, but if you go to the Bearable Guy 123 Twitter page, you can see all of the posts that he's made. Early on in 2018, there was a lot more. There was a bunch of Reddit posts. There was many things. After 2020, it's really slowed down to just Christmas. And it's really like a day before or 2 days before Christmas that he's made those posts. You've got the boat, you've got the greenhouse, you've got the French hat. He always is wearing a hat. He's barefoot in a lot of the ones early on until he's a cowboy here recently in the last 2 years, and then on the moon. The boat is also in a photo on the wall when they're in the poker game, as if it's already happened in the past. And then also, if you look at the one where they have the 3 different paths, and the castle off in the distance, and again the cowboy, he's dressed as a cowboy in that one. The castle, the greenhouse, and the boat are all in the background as if they have already passed. So I know that there's other people out there that say that those things haven't happened yet. Bah, bah, bah. David Schwartz and Christine Lagarde and a few other people went to Antarctica back in 2022, 2021, somewhere in there. You could go back and look it up. David Schwartz posted a picture of him with a piece of ice and the penguins. If you look at the ship deal, there's a piece of ice that it's sailing toward. And I think that post was indicative of that event. The Joker that's up their sleeve, and Brad still has an ace up his sleeve, and even in the moon picture most recently on Christmas. I think that the Joker was the gentleman that Ethereum kind of kicked out, Steve, when he circled back around. That kind of helped unveil the ETHgate situation. Anyway, I think there's a lot more to those than people realize. It takes some critical thinking and things to go through it. But I think many of those things have already happened in the past. But they do like double meanings. So there could be something in the future as well. Huckleberrier says, what dollar amount does XRP need to be before you're able to take a nap? Keep going strong. We need a beacon till it happens. Sorry. I thought that was going somewhere different. Before I'm able to take a nap. I still get 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. But as soon as I hit the bed, you can ask my wife, I'm out, and then I'm up early in the morning, do a little cardio and get my day started. So I don't think I'm going to be able to slow down post price appreciation. We have too many things that we need to accomplish, too many things we need to do, too many products, too many services. That's when people are going to need me more than ever, and our team and our company. So if anything, I think I'll be working more if that's possible. On the other side of that, hopefully I can pull back on the traveling a little bit. And maybe I can allocate a little more time in the evenings for my family, to try and get some balance on that side. But as far as working, I think it's still going to be 16, 18-hour days a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't plan on slowing down, but maybe when I'm in my 40s, and I've got a while before that's the case. Dallas Buzz, he says, can you speak to the standard charter arrangement with China and the CBETs? Seems like they believe in the neutral settlement token too. I would agree. It sure does seem like they believe in a neutral settlement token. The Code Keeper, they say, Jake, I've been listening to you for a while. I would like to know when XRP reaches high numbers, what kind of validation would you be feeling? And I believe when XRP finally moves, it will be instant. It's going to move very quickly when it goes. There will come a point where there's no supply left on the exchanges and the chart will gap up based on the demand that's moving into it. So I believed it for a long time. For me, I don't even know that I'll feel vindication or anything like that. I think that I'll just continue to be able to operate. All the problems that we have now will be fixed, and then we will have completely new problems that I will have to solve when, when all that plays out. That's what I signed up for, So you can't complain about how full your plate is when you ask to eat, right? The old nail pounder, good to see you. Say hola, legend. Aloha to the tea lady. What do you think about LightSpark and Bitcoin Lightning Network? Mark Moss feels so blessed to be in the mastermind with such a wise and informative leader. God bless. Thank you, man. Mark's super sharp. I used to listen to Mark a lot earlier on, him and George Gammon, and a lot of the people that are BTC proponents, that I hold them in a high regard. They're extremely intelligent when it comes to macroeconomics, the financial system, how things work. It's hard for me to really comprehend why they're so Bitcoin centric. Like, I get the libertarian piece of it. I don't know. I didn't go down that direction for whatever reason. So LightSpark and Bitcoin Lightning Network. Those are great as long as the underlying chain still validates transactions. Those are layer twos to be able to facilitate transactions faster and cheaper, similar to Polygon on top of Ethereum. That collateral still has to be locked and settled later on the backend blockchain or the L1. It's a good workaround. Is it the solution for global payment infrastructure or peer-to-peer payments or institutional payments? Not at all. The throughput on it's still not anywhere near high enough to be able to facilitate or support that. You're trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken L1. We've already heard multiple large institutions and even Vitalik himself say that the L2s kind of failed, that's not how things are going to work. It's going to have to be layer ones that have the capability to be able to scale. So again, not to knock it, I think that the people that have put it together are very intelligent, and it's a novel solution to a problem that does exist. I just don't know how much further it gets you, especially with quantum and a lot of the Bitcoin infrastructure pivoting toward AI, GPU, and compute. I think there's going to be a consolidation of the miners, and eventually it won't be profitable to mine Bitcoin. You would rather rehypothecate that infrastructure for the other. And so over time, I think Bitcoin will probably fade away. There's not going to be enough incentive to mine Bitcoin on the network. And if it's not profitable because the value of Bitcoin drops enough, a lot of people are just going to step away from that and again, pivot their infrastructure somewhere else that does make them money. If you wanted to build out global decentralized compute at scale and incentivize people to do that, Bitcoin's your ticket. I think we're there. I think they've built out the infrastructure that they needed to for AI utilizing Bitcoin. And that, I don't know that was the objective that Satoshi had. It could have been the introduction of digital money that AI agents would use, and then also creating a mechanism by which the infrastructure to be able to support those AI agents was also built out. Pretty compelling that Bitcoin would do both of those things, kind of two birds, one stone type thing. Again, very smart individuals would argue against me on all those topics. I hold them in a high regard. I think Mark's super intelligent. Same thing with George Gammon and many other people. And I still watch their stuff occasionally. It's hard for me because I do hold them in a high regard, and I don't see how they missed what I was able to see, I guess. We got William, Mr. Kilgore. He says, Jake, I appreciate all that you do for us each week. Keep me from going into deep depression. The start of each week is refreshing. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you for the super chat. And happy to be here. Happy to do it. JL1313 says, Jake, thank you for your time on Monday and Wednesday nights. Newbie here. Question, 5K bag each XRP, XLM, and HBAR, retirement possibility soon, and on a modest 150K passive income post price appreciation 50s. Opinion appreciated. It is an opinion. It is not financial advice. When you say soon, that's not really a specific time frame. I'm going to go with my soon. Grab this real quick. My soon is like a couple years. So if that's the indication or the intention of that word in your question, yes, I think that that's highly feasible. Especially with the tokenization of financial markets and the price appreciation that I do think we will see in all three of those tokens, and the capability to leverage those tokens in different capacities to generate passive income. So yeah, I think that that's feasible with that investment in a 2 to 3 year time frame to be able to replace that salary. We got JS Frenald. They say, hey Jake, when price appreciation happens, let's say that the first uptick is 100. How long before 1,000? Where can I find? Where can you find what? Not sure what the second question is. And then I don't know the answer to the first one either. I'd be completely speculating. It really just depends on the flywheel and how quickly that takes place and what additional bandwidth is required from the asset once there's enough liquidity in it. I think back-end settlement in the stock market is going to push things to 4 digits pretty quickly. So you have more tokenized stocks coming online July 13th. If we do see things kick off before the end of this month, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time before it would be a substantially higher price with that feedback loop. And as they bring more and more assets on chain and there's more and more markets that are settling, I think that it will continue to spiral higher and higher over time. And that's why the price fixing or the administrative repricing, that's why that doesn't make sense to me. Let's see here. Be More says Clarity Act fails, but they take another bill like Parity that deals with taxation and adds basics of the Clarity and pushes it in a reconciliation bill that can pass by a majority. Sure, I think that that's possible. I think that there's going to be 3 crypto-centric bills that get passed. Again, if you want to use your tinfoil hat, we're gonna go there. And this is not the only reason I think there's gonna be 3 bills, but this is the tinfoil hat reason. If you look at the last Bearable Guy post, there used to be 3 books on the table, and then on the horse, and then on the bookshelf, and in the ocean, and all those other things. Last time there was only 2 books left on the command center that he posted, and all the other books were out over the moon, like the bunch of different stable coins, and that was the legislation that was passed and in use out there on the moon. And then there were 2 still kind of in the backlog of bills to be passed for crypto regulation. So, but I think they're going to need one for taxation and for insurance, and I think they'll need another one for DeFi. And I don't know that Clarity is going to be what they need for DeFi. I think the CFTC and the SEC's guidance is enough for the industry to progress at this point, along with the OCC guidance around stablecoins. I don't know that they need the Clarity Act to cover those things. I think that it's more for the DeFi component for institutional adoption there. And then obviously we do need tax and insurance and how that's going to work as well. Patients first, they say, thank you for your insights. As Ripple sold 300 million XRP this month, does Solana now faster than XRP? It also working with with R3 make a difference? Yes, I think Ripple has sold their 300 million XRP onto the market. I'm going to show you guys how to look that up so you don't have to ask me. Well, I don't know if I want to pull up my Twitter here and show you guys on screen. You would just Google whale watcher or whale alert. I think it's whale alert. Excuse me. You would find when they unlocked it from the escrow. You would then click into the XRP scan, the wallet that it shows it was released to, and you would look and see if that XRP is still there. If it's not still there, then they sold it onto the market. So pretty simple to figure that one out. And then as far as Solana working with R3, they can trial it, but Solana doesn't have a history of being up the whole time like XRP does. And for institutional settings, that's not going to suffice. If you look at downtime that's required by the majority of these large networks, Microsoft, their tolerance for downtime is like less than a millisecond per year. Solana was down for hours, and they have upgraded the network and done a lot of other things, but I think there's also been another outage since then. So the redundancy component, like to have it as a redundancy in case there's an issue with the main network as a backup, cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. Hashgraph also makes a lot of sense in that capacity. But the main settlement mechanism and primary settlement mechanism for R3 and Corda is XRP. Rich says, Jake, thanks for all that you do. I saw your video stating Ripple needs to shut off the monthly faucet and freeze escrow for price appreciation. They can't freeze escrow. If they did withhold payment coming onto the market, that would help, dry up supply and cause a supply shock. But freezing the escrow is not terminology that I use, nor would they be capable of doing that. They just wouldn't be releasing it. They're able to get, there's a redemption or release of 1 billion XRP each month around the first, every single month, because that's how they built it. What are your thoughts on that? Again, I think if they did withhold utilizing those funds and selling them onto the market to be able to drive revenue for their corporation, and they were able to derive, revenue similar from their current business structure and the new businesses that they've acquired, that they would prefer to do that, and because it would push XRP's price higher, and that's only a net benefit for them. Tippy forward. Say, hey Jake, what happened to XRP if Ripple freezes the escrow? I don't know where this came from. I don't know why people are saying that. For 5 to 7 years, and if clarity is passed, God bless. So again, I did not say freeze escrow. I've said if they did not sell it onto the market, there's going to be a release every single month, no matter what they do. So they can't freeze the escrow. They could just not sell it. So if they did stop doing that, then there would be less XRP coming onto the market. The only other XRP that could come onto the market would come from retail. And that would also get gobbled up very quickly in the right circumstances. Take one more here, and I think this is the last one for tonight. We got Y Sharp Tube. They say, you have looked at the intraday. Have you looked at the intraday Euro versus the USD and XRP versus USD charts for the last 30 days or so? Interesting pattern or what? Well, let's take a look here. Euro versus USD. Last 30 days. Always like this type of stuff. People bring some interesting information. That's on the 1 minute. We don't want the 1 minute. We want the 1 day. Last 30 days. I'm assuming you're saying that there's a correlation here and it's also trading within the same range of $1.15 to $1.20. I mean, the euro versus the USD has been there since May of last year. It's held pretty steady at an average of about $1.16. So I don't know that I could say that there's a correlation. XRP has been significantly higher than that in that same period of time. It continued to trend down and is now stabilized around this level. So the last 30 days, maybe there's a correlation there, but I don't know that it's significant. But like I said, interesting nonetheless. We haven't talked much about this tonight, but if you do want to work with us on the LLC side, or if you just want to get an LLC, there's a lot of attorneys out there and other good people that provide products in the market around that. We've done more than anybody else for crypto. We'd love to work with you. All you got to do is go over to app.digitalascensiongroup.com. It's $1,500 end to end, everything that you would need to be able to manage your crypto through a corporation, issued in Wyoming, anonymity, creditor protection, all the fun stuff that goes along with that. We also do more complex estate planning, including living trusts, to make sure that that's done correctly. We have the assignment from your LLC or your digital assets into that. You might want to make sure that you're doing that stuff because, again, I've talked about my dad. He did not assign any of his assets to the trust that he set up. Wasted a bunch of time and money doing that, thinking that he got it right. On the wealth management side, if you have at least 50,000 XRP or if you have at least $100,000 in digital assets at the current time, we would love to work with you over there, get you access to institutional custody at Anchorage and the other products and solutions we have and are bringing to market with that group. And then last but not least, we'd love to see you over there in the mastermind if that's something you'd be interested in. A lot of financial education, business resources, more in real life events than any other community in crypto, aside from maybe like the Bored Ape Yacht Club or Crypto Mondays. Shout out to Lou over there. And yeah, again, month to month, no contract, easy to cancel if it's not for you, and that's okay if it isn't. It's not for everybody, and it is on Discord, so it's a little tougher for some people to figure out, which we understand as well. So, but if you do want to check it out and try it out for $2, you can go over to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized #1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 to go check it out. And I'm sure I missed a couple super chats here. If you, because I scrolled back up in the chat, but if you did send a super chat and you want to, hear me read it on Monday, just email it over to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. I wish you guys a wonderful evening, a wonderful week. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.